Hello, everyone. My name is Nir. So first of all, it's great being here. I see and know many faces, including even some of our recent graduates from the training that we provide for very large enterprises. Actually, I don't mind sharing the name McKesson. McKesson is actually a great example of a Fortune 5 company, more than 185 years old enterprise that is really transforming. That is transforming itself to become agile and nimble, but most importantly, a model-driven enterprise. So this will be the topic today. But before I actually jump into this presentation, there is a message that I want to broadcast to you all. We are the fourth industrial revolution. And companies need to figure out how to survive within this competitive landscape. But more importantly, AI is not anymore a computer science problem or topic. Everyone should know what is AI, should understand the space of it, should understand how to enable it, and how to implement it in their organization, and even in their life, even in their personal life, so we can actually solve the most pressing, crucial problems that we are facing in this specific era and in this time, so we can actually advance our world and again solve problems like economics, societal, and environmental. So I hope you will enjoy this presentation. I gave it many, many times. I'm going to introduce myself really quickly. This is a very short, 45 minutes is a very short amount of time for me, so I will just rush into it. And if you have questions, I will be here to speak with you right after. So my name is Nir. I'm the head of data science at Galvanize. For those of you who don't know Galvanize, Galvanize is a technology ecosystem for learners, startups, entrepreneurs, and also established companies. We help them reskill and upskill the current workforce and knowledge so they can actually survive in this fourth industrial revolution. We have 8 campuses across the country, growing rapidly. In the past year and a half, I was focused on bootstrapping our data science and data engineering enterprise training, where we work with Fortune 500 companies and their international equivalent, help them go through the transformation, become data-driven, but more importantly, model-driven enterprises so they can actually compete and survive. More than that, 4 years ago, I created our fully accredited Master of Science in Data Science. Back then, it was the 3rd in the world. I'm a Google expert, IBM champion, and some other stuff. I'm also an author to be. My book is going to be published in 3 months. If I will have a second, I will talk about it at the very end. So this is going to be the agenda for the 45 minutes that you will have to suffer hearing me speaking. The first item will be about the future of machine intelligence and business innovation. And we talk about why it's such a crucial time to act on that and why it's so important. We're going to go and talk about data-driven organization, but most importantly, model-driven enterprises and what does it mean. And talk about the data science workflow. So I think this is an interesting segue from the previous talk that we have, because I'm going to talk about it, but from an operation perspective and actually how to implement that and start the journey, which will lead me for the 3rd bullet here is talk about model-driven organization, and I will try to be as much as granular with you and give you tips and habits from my experience working with literally the largest organization in the world and help them to go through this transformation. So here we go. It's time to get serious about artificial intelligence, not because we have been talking about AI for literally 60 years in academia. It's time to get serious about it because now it's time that we can actually look at early adopters, companies who actually started the journey, figure out where they invested, how much they invested, what were the barriers and the success stories, and learn from those early adopters, measure the ROI, so what was the transformative impact on their business, and take them as case studies to help incumbents transform their organizations. So the transformation, as I believe you all know, is everywhere. And we see here many industries that are being affected with artificial intelligence, data science, machine intelligence, call it whatever you want, with all of these like modeling techniques. But more than that, it is really time to act on that, because if companies will not act on how and figure out how to operationalize data science and machine intelligence, they don't have higher, let's put it like that, they will not survive. So, and you know, when I typically talk about artificial intelligence and machine intelligence, I typically get questions about, okay, will AI conquer us all and destroy humanity? By the way, how many people believe in that? That AI will one day will be better than us or will destroy us? Okay, there's like 2 people. Okay, I'm in a good company. And I can talk about it forever. But the message that I want to send to you and the way that I actually approach executives and business leaders is think about artificial intelligence or machine intelligence, which is kind of a little bit more a modest word to describe that, this technology, as a brain helper. So we talk about augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence that, by the way, from a technology perspective, we are very, very far away. I truly believe that you should read reports from IBM and Google and Facebook and all of these tech companies that are actually creating these capabilities and designing this system, and learn what's the purpose, what's the way that actually the manifest for designing this kind of like system, and whether they actually think that this system should replace the human or augment the human. So working with all of this organization and their CEOs, I can tell you that the system were designed to augment our intelligence. We are in an era of wealth of data, and there is a cognitive overflow. Just to give you an example, and I will ask you some questions, just shoot the answer to the air. Average American, on an average day, how many events, pieces of information, you think we try to digest on a daily basis? How many kind of like think about data points floating towards us? How many pieces of information we try to digest? Just throw it out, I'm not judging. Millions. So how many millions? 50 millions. So research have shown that an average American, not speaking about people like you or maybe executive of Fortune 100 companies, try to digest around 10 million data points on a daily basis. There is obviously a lot of data that is flowing towards us, and our brain, and even like the capabilities of our eye to catch all of this information is not built for that. For example, if I show you 100 data points, just 100, one after the other, in a sequence of events, how many of those you think our eye can actually catch and remember? There is the magic number. Someone knows? It's 7. So let's say that 7 out of 100 is almost, it's 7%, but let's round it up and make it 10%. The question is this 10% is actually unbiased data. The answer for that is it's very actually biased, because our eye catches things with specific color, with specific message that resonates with us, with specific size. So even the amount of data that we can remember and actually accumulate in our head is very biased. So we need this tool, we need this service, we need this technology to actually augment our intelligence so we can actually digest and process all the data that is flowing towards us and towards our organization. So we are in an era of human plus the machine. I think someone here said something about it earlier. It's not just the machine and it's not just the human. It's a collaborative effort of these 2 entities, the human plus the machine. And the entire idea, again, as Satya said here, the entire idea is that we want to use this technology so we can actually solve the most pressing problems that we have in our era. And this is why we should talk about how to democratize machine intelligence, artificial intelligence, and basically data science and machine learning techniques to make our world a better place. So think about machine intelligence and AI as a brain helper. Now, let's talk about the transformation and the ROI here. So we see that the investment year to year is increasing rapidly. There is actually a very modest number, say 20% uplift in revenue for companies who are leveraging this technology. I truly believe it's more like 35 today. But you can read some other quotes of people are saying and kind of like trying to describe what is the transformation behind the initial investment. Now that's the interesting part. It is time to act on that, and I want to show you some data and why do believe that this is time to really act on that. And there is here, this is a former CEO of Cisco that says that more than 1/3 of business will not survive in the next 10 years. And I want to ask you a question. What is the current life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company? What is the duration? How many years we can expect them to survive in current setting in the industry, the competitive landscape of this fourth industrial revolution? What is the life expectancy of such a company? How many years? What would you say? 30 years. Someone else? Just to balance it off? 10. Good. So let me show you the data. In the past 15 years, 52% of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. It means ceased to exist. Some of them got into mergers. But you said 30 years, so let's see where 30 fits in this type of diagram and data. So in 1955, life expectancy of Fortune 500 company was 75 years. Pretty much their executives could sit on the chair, very relaxed. They don't need to really hustle. In 2015, just really recently, it dramatically dropped to 15 years. And today is actually less than 8. So executive and business leaders really need to figure out how to bootstrap this technology that will help their organization move forward. So this is why it's important to act on it now. And if you don't believe why you should act on it rapidly now, let me try to show you that. So this is Fifth Avenue. I believe it's Easter morning. On the left side is 1900. Same spot you will see on the right side, Easter morning, just 13 years afterwards. On the left image, you will see all carriages and horses and one car. And on the right one, you will see all car, and there is only one carriage. 13 years in 1900. So the disruption is massive, and the speed of change is even more exponential than that. So let's talk quickly about the future of business innovation and where we believe it's actually heading to. So today, most of innovative companies, and here you have some that you are very familiar with, relying on data science and machine intelligence technique to drive business process, enhance their user experience, and add general value to their company. We can talk about how Amazon doing it. Amazon is a large supply chain company that basically enhance and enable artificial intelligence in every part of this chain to perfect this chain to make it what Amazon worth today. When I ask people how you can describe Amazon, people say Amazon is everything, right? They literally do everything for us. Facebook with the content recommendation, Google with the advertisement, Alibaba with robotic and some other stuff. So this is what is currently happening in the industry, but that's honestly a bit boring because the disruption is going very fast. And if we look at what is the future of business innovation, we can argue that the future of business innovation has an artificial intelligence as a core component, as the very core structure of the business. So think about products like Nest. Nest is beautifully designed, but the purpose of Nest or the technology behind Nest is actually what drives the product forward. Think about Pandora. Actually, Pandora with the Genome Project started like more than 15 years ago, doing recommendation, like superior recommendation engine to really sell, right? We have Spotify with recommendation engine, and obviously Amazon Echo that is, speech to text and vice versa, or speech recognition actually, that is actually changing the way we think about business innovation. And if you think about what is common to all of these products, is all of them has this technology embedded in the very core structure of the business, and this is basically how they monetize. So quickly changing, I'm working very, very closely with, trying to spend all my time with Fortune 25 companies and their international equivalent, because I truly believe that the impact that these companies have on our local economy, but also on the global economy, will change our world. And these companies have a lot of money, okay? And they don't have a problem to recruit the right talent. But they might have a different problem, which is the data. So the message that I want to send to you is strong data is the foundation of what we call artificial intelligence, or basically how to become a data-driven organization and a model-driven enterprise. And data is the king, and not just the king, it's also gold. Data is the competitive advantage that companies have in this time and era. So always think about data, always think about how you can aggregate it, make it in the right shape, label it so you can actually ingest it to the models and get some output from that will enhance your business. So that's kind of was for the short introduction that I have, but I want to talk right now about the model-driven journey. And when I typically pitch it to executives, I show them what I call the intelligence maturity curve. And it starts obviously with reporting. You have historical descriptive measures to inform whether we are hitting or predefined our KPIs. We have the monitoring phase, right, which is a little bit more advanced, where you have instrumentation of key elements of the experience and feedback, and then you move for some analytics, and then you get into predictive and forecasting, and basically doing recommendation engine, churn model, prediction model, supply chain, demand forecasting, etc. And if you're at the very top of this chain, you have what we say contextual execution, where basically all of these predictive models are embedded in the business, and the business reacts to it in a very automated fashion. So that's where this is kind of like the horizon when we look at the intelligence maturity curve. Now, actually, if you think about it, the first 2 or maybe 3 steps is what we call a data-driven enterprise or a data-driven company. But we are beyond that. We are trying to currently transform incumbents and companies in Fortune 500 companies to become a model-driven enterprise. And when I refer to a model-driven enterprise, I refer to companies that cultivate or leverage the data that they have plus modeling techniques to actually create to get into step 4 and 5, to do the forecasting, but more than that, automate it in their business, make their business agile and nimble, so we can quickly best respond to all the predictions from the models. So to that, I want to talk a little bit. Okay, I have some animation here. So obviously, I put some names of companies that you're all familiar with. I didn't want to put companies in Fortune 500 companies that I work with that stuck at the very low bottom of this intelligence maturity curve. But this is the shift. We're moving, people overly talk about the data-driven enterprise. Yes, companies have a lot of data. They can get insight from that, but it's not enough. We need to move into a model-driven enterprise, an organization that can quickly best respond and augment this technology into their business to drive it forward. So previous lecture here was about kind of like the data science workflow, and you got this very beautiful pamphlet. So I want to talk about it just from a little bit higher level and focus on the operations side of that. And the most importantly, and I was actually very happy to hear that people here mentioned the word change management, because it's a crucial, vital step. So this is kind of like the generic data science workflow. I show you that not because I think you should all become data scientists. I show you that because everyone, including business people and functional leaders, should understand how to criticize each each step within this workflow. So if you think about the end-to-end of it, you start with asking great questions that can be solved with data. You do some evaluation for that, or what we call a data ROI exercise, and I will talk about it in a second. Then you acquire the data, you put it in the right shape, and then you ingest it into the analyze phase, basically into models. You run the models, you test the models, and then you move to the acting phase, where you actually have to figure out how to implement these sophisticated learning models within your organization to actually see the ROI. And that's one of the crucial problems here. 60% of data science, machine learning, or even analytical projects are not being implemented in the organization even after they have been proven working and testing. And that's a big problem. Think about just the investment size. How much money you burned on creating, testing, hiring people to create this intelligence within your business, and then at the very last step, you cannot actually operationalize it and embed it in your business. Just waste of money. So how we combat that? What is the problem here? So by working with many organizations, I learned a few things, and I want to show you here what I learned. But there is something very important on this slide that many people actually don't talk about, is the end-to-end change management that require to think from the very, very first step, from actually when you start the journey, from number one here. You have to think about it at number one and not at number 7 or 8 or even 9, that can actually solve this big problem. So when I work with like these brilliant leaders and CEOs, they all have very like fancy degrees from Harvard and some other like great business school in the world. The problem is that once upon a time at Harvard or UC Berkeley or at Stanford, these executives were not trained to think about how to operationalize a project in kind of like the newly fashioned end-to-end. So if you think about how we used to teach them, we used to say, okay, you need to operationalize that or embark on the project expecting that you will have business people, executive, and business people and executive, and this is the flow. Today, this change management looks completely different. You have an executive and business problem and technical people and engineers and data scientists, and then goes back to business and then executive. So there is a new persona that we need to figure out how to work with in order to actually implement and put this model into production to actually realize the ROI. And I will talk about this end-to-end change management in just a bit. And someone, I think, on this side mentioned data translator. So the change management is a vital step. You have to think about how to actually operationalize it at step 1 and not at step 9. But this is the challenge. The challenge here is that business and technical teams have to work hand in hand and in collaboration to actually operationalize this model and put them in production, and so the company can actually see the ROI. And if you look at the AI talent map, and if you look at the personas that we have, you will see that there were holes, and I use the past term here because companies are doing stuff that I want to kind of like show you what they're currently doing in order to mitigate this gap. But there was like the data analyst, and then there was the data scientist, and then there were the engineers, and basically there was some disconnect and holes. If you really look at the AI talent map, there are holes in this AI talent map. So companies try to figure out in the past year or so how we can actually bridge these gaps. And one of the solutions that we help them train and establish is creating this data translator or data science analyst. Think about it as a middleman. On one hand, you hold the data scientist or the engineers, some highly technical people. On the left hand, you hold the business people, and you're basically a facilitator between these two. So in the past year and a half, you can just Google it on LinkedIn and figure out the trends. You see more and more companies creating this new persona that call either the data translator or the data science analyst or kind of like local semi-technical PMs that really help helped implement this change management and ease the pain between the technical and the non-technical side of the business. So actually, organization can realize the ROI beyond the initial investment in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the message here is you have to think about this change management that involves right now lots of technical people, which is a new persona in this kind of like loop. And you have to figure out how to create this middleman. You know, most of organizations, especially the big ones, do need this middleman that will basically facilitate between these two kind of like end extreme, the business side and the highly technical one, to implement this model. So what is your role as a leader in the 21st century? The first thing is champion data. When I work with these executives, I always tell them, when an input gets to your table, ask your employees to show you the data, to show you how they got to this conclusion that you need actually to vet before you actually execute. And what I've seen is when executives, and it was mind-blowing opportunity to see executive being trained in this workshop that we deliver and then afterwards executing it, you know, when we're actually outside of the room, asking their employees all the time, where is the data? Show me the data. And just this mindset, now think about Fortune 5 company. Think about IBM, 300,000 people. If people at the top will actually ask their employees and their immediate direct report, where is the data? This will be amplified throughout the entire organization because people will not bring new conclusions and new output to their higher level without actually looking at the data and figure out whether the conclusion makes sense or not. So champion data. You will see that if we lead by examples, it's going to amplify throughout the entire organization. The second thing, if you have to figure out how to apply the learning horizontally. If you find a solution that data science or machine learning can help you in one vertical of the business, try to figure out how to replicate it to different verticals and learn the best practices from each other. Redefine your strategy. I always tell companies, and I actually help companies define their data strategy. But this is work in progress, right? It's not that I come as a consultant or educator and I say, okay, we work now a month or even 3 months together with your employees and C-level executive and we define your data strategy and I say goodbye. You always have to redefine that because there are new trends, new technology instrumentation, even the data landscape is changing as you go. So think about data acquisition, the data labeling techniques, and how obviously data governance and security, which is a big thing today. And you know, just what happened, you know, just a month ago, companies completely had to redefine their data strategy when it comes to data security and governance, right? So always redefine that. And the fourth thing is get calibrated and always keep learning because the field is changing literally as we speak. And you have to kind of like make sure that you understand what are the new advances and technology that you can actually leverage in order to transform your organization. And what I'm always saying to people is that if you look at the data maturity horizons, it always starts with the people. It always starts with us. Data science in general, and I'm sure you know, is a top-down initiative. If people at the top will not provide the right culture, the environment, and the funding, you will not be able to actually implement this core technology in the business and enhance it. And the transformation is actually starting with all of us by asking questions like what I know instead of what I think, right? Don't work with your gut feeling. Leave it aside for a second. Ask what do you know, look at data, and then strive forward. Then you move to, you maximize data that you already have access to. I spend so much time working with so many very, very large organizations in the world, and I see executives sit in the room and business leader and just say, oh, I don't have the data for that. Well, you have been operating for 100 years. I'm sure you have a lot of data, and when you actually send them back to actually figure out how much data they have and just create like a metadata repository, which is sometimes a weird idea for a Fortune 500 company, they discover they actually have a lot of data. So focus for a second on what you have. Try to figure out how to leverage that, and then figure out how you can actually enhance the data around that. But what you will discover is that you actually have a lot of data that you can actually leverage. The third one is you want to promote the utilization of the data throughout the organization. One of the things that we try to tell business leader is you have to showcase the wins. There is lots of companies like, for example, McKesson, they're doing amazing work and creating all of this amazing capability in literally 0 time. And we need to figure out how to kind of like broadcast these wins within different departments so people can actually learn from that. Companies not necessarily excel with that. And the fourth one is obviously, it's at the top, you have access and contribute to a company-wide data platform, and things work in a very automated fashion. So now, let's dive deep into how to actually start a transformation. Because what I want you to get out of this like 45 minutes is habits and tools and ideas, how you can go to your office, to your company, right today, tomorrow, right after this workshop, and figure out how to transform it so it will be a model-driven enterprise. So, what is a model-driven enterprise? Any idea? I said model-driven enterprise for so long. What is that? What's the definition of that? Anyone? Don't be shy. Okay, I will say. So, for the sake of time, a model-driven company is an enterprise that cultivates the culture of continuously using data and machine intelligence techniques to make all business decisions. Now, I'm talking about purely business decisions, not about if you should go to the restroom today or tomorrow or in an hour or in 5 minutes. Purely business decisions. And executives actually are very good, even before we actually teach them all of these skills and provide them the tools. They say that, I typically start and say, okay, you're executive, you're business people, you probably know your problems better than everyone in the organization. Write down your top 5 business problems. All of them knows how to do that. Then I ask them, okay, how many of these 5 business problems you think you can actually solve by leveraging data and modeling techniques? All of them before the workshop typically says 75% of these business problems can be solved by leveraging data and modeling techniques. By the end of that, almost 90% of them say, okay, I can solve all my top 5 business problems using this technology. So we truly believe that most of hardcore business problems can be solved by leveraging data that you have, plus this modeling technique. So this is what we say a model-driven enterprise. Why you want to be a model-driven enterprise and invest in the culture and the people and the operations and all of that is because you want your organization to quickly best respond to all the predictions that are coming from these sophisticated models. So, and why it's hard to become a model-driven organization? The truth is because of all of us. It's not necessarily a data problem because companies have a lot of data. It's not a technology problem because the technology is out there and large companies like Fortune 500 companies have a lot of money to give a call to IBM, Dell, and some other companies to implement this technology at scale. So it's not a data problem, it's not a technology problem, it's hardcore people problem. And it's all about us. It's how you create this culture and how you basically operationalize that from a human perspective to actually augment the technology within your business and see the ROI. So harnessing information so your organization become data-driven and model-driven is not easy or simple task, but here is where to start. So I'm going to give you 6 principles that I have been tested with many organizations. I'm going to give you some very short case studies just for the sake of time. These 6 principles are not, it's not a rubric. It's not, your organization will not be able to fit 100% into them, but it will give you an idea how you can actually start thinking how to take these 6 principles and implement them in your organization with respect to your culture, environment, technology infrastructure, mission, and etc. So the first one is all about strategy. Start from your business objectives. You have to, and once this is clear to you, you have to design a roadmap and have a clear strategy how to leverage the data. So that's kind of like the first milestone. Then you really, truly have to treat data as a strategic asset. And one brilliant person, and I think Natalie, I don't know if she's still in the room, I think she spoke here in the morning, can talk to that, is DJ Patil, that was the former White House Chief Information Officer. And he really forced everyone in the government and people who work with him to figure out how to treat data as a strategic asset, because he understood that this is gold. And with that, you can actually enhance decision making. So he looked at leveraging government data to inform policy, budgeting, and operation, from an operation perspective. So starts with like figure out how to create a strategy to leverage the data that you already have and treat the data as a strategic asset to inform your and make better decision making within your organization. The second one is democratize your data. Now, you're probably going to hear me online say, yeah, you should democratize your data throughout the organization. Well, we do it in a very smart way and not just open the data to everyone in the organization, because if I said that data is gold and this gold is going to leak from your organization, we are both in big troubles. So how you can actually democratize data in a smart, intelligent way? How about, so let me give you some ideas. How about we identify roles within your organization, figure out what decisions are these specific personas and roles are doing, and then basically we'll provide the data to support these decisions that they are making. Now, soon enough, blockchain will help us do that. The blockchain infrastructure is actually great for data democratization. Not so many startups out there that are currently doing it, but I truly believe that blockchain will really help a very large organization with tremendous amount of data, democratize it with respect to the right decisions, keys, and et cetera, et cetera. So you need to basically build an infrastructure that can handle the flood of data and route it across the organization in a very efficient way. One company that did a great job for that, and I think there is some people from Airbnb here, is Airbnb that built this data platform that basically help different functions within the team understand what data that they have and how they can actually leverage, just getting to know the data is an important step by itself. So getting to know the data, figure out what they do with the data, what teams are working with the data, is actually going to help democratize data within your organization, and people will be able to think more about, okay, so I have this data, how can I leverage this data to make my organization or function within the organization better and smarter. The third one is all about culture. You have to create a data science and analytics culture. So leaders have to create and figure out how to create habits and incentivize employees to look at data at the point of action or decision. So basically, if you think about it, we have decision making and we have data, and what we want to do is bring them as closer as possible. This is what we said, a data-driven enterprise, right? Trying to figure out how we can leverage the knowledge and data that we have to make decisions. The second aspect here when we talk about culture is how you bring closer non-technical and technical teams to actually work seamlessly together and realize the ROI. And I talk a little bit about the data translator and the data science analyst. Google does an amazing job with education. We talk about this middleman, sometimes even org structure. So here, for example, you have the embedded structure where you have like data scientists sits in ponds, like think about the operation, the marketing, the finance team. There is cross-pollination between these teams. So sometimes even specific org structure can help you kind of like create create this culture. The fourth one is speed to insight, and this is very interesting because you need to unleash data as an insight, but the current trend is not just how to, again, we are moving the data-driven world, we are now in the model-driven world, so we try to figure out how to basically democratize machine learning and some sort of like AI models to everyone in the organization. So no matter if you do not know how to write one line of code, you will be able to take the data, drag it to the right side of the corner of the screen, drop it there, press on 3 buttons, and here you go, you have an output from a machine learning model. So it's not just, democratizing the data or routing the data throughout the organization, is also how you can actually take these like artificial intelligence and machine learning models and democratize them to everyone. And this is what we call speed to insight or to models. Airbnb, I think this is almost 2 years ago. This is why IBM Watson is so popular, right? Every developer, every business owner can literally drag the data to the right side, press on 3 buttons, and here we go, you have some output. So you do not need to know how to code in order to see these results from these models. The 5th one is you need to make sure that data science is a valuable, crucial business KPI in the organization. I think that the organization are actually doing a great job with that. What they're not necessarily doing a great job is to figure out how to prioritize data investment with the highest ROI. So in Fortune 500 companies, a chief data officer or a chief information officer gets around 2,300 data science or analytics project a year. How he's supposed to kind of like prioritize all of that? So what we do is we actually work with executive and functional leaders and tell them, before you actually submit the request to the CDO or the CIO, think about this project in terms of feasibility versus impact. And you can imagine, X axis will be visibility, Y will be impact. And think about impact in terms of additional money and revenue to your organization, and think about feasibility where you think that the project is actually feasible from a data perspective, from a technology perspective, and try to shoot to where impact and feasibility is at the highest corner. And this project will be those one that will actually change your organization and transform it very, very quickly. So number 6 here, which obviously, we heard a lot in the past 2 months, is you need to master the governance, security, and privacy of the data asset. I've been telling this 6 principle for years. I'm sad that it happened to Facebook, but I'm happy that it happened, so the world is aware that in order to become a model-driven enterprise, you have to really respect governance and data security and privacy. And there's a lot of conversation earlier on that happened about, ethics in AI. So I love to hear Ginny Rometty, the CEO of IBM, talks about it in terms of purpose, transparency, and trust. And if you think about these kind of like 3 components, you can actually answer to yourself whether you think AI is gonna destroy all of us or conquer humanity, and kind of like get into the mindset of these very large corporations that are actually building and designing and training this sophisticated learning model. So respect data governance and security. It has to be set by now. Unfortunately, this is not the current state of the industry. I work with lots of organizations in finance, healthcare, that I was shocked to discover that they are very far away from that. So this is the 6th one. I don't have much time. I'm gonna publish my book in 3 months. I'm not gonna do big promo here, but for all the people that are in the room that want to subscribe to the website, I'm gonna give a big discount because I love Domino. And actually, Nick and I go a very long time. Actually, Domino started at Galvanize long time ago in the co-working space. So we'll give you a special discount. But more than that, I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to answer your question. And thank you for being here with me. Thank you.